All right, for the last piece of the puzzle here in this template here, I've added the cumulative delta here. Now, this is the TDU cumulative delta, available to you if you do not own the order flow version of Ninja. If you do, you already have a cumulative delta. Now, we do a few additional things with ours. For example, we give you the ability to put a set of Bollinger Bands on the cumulative delta. Here, what I've done here, and this is often how I'll do it, I've just made the outside edges of the Bollinger Bands transparent because I want to focus on that center line, which is just a 20-period moving average. So in effect, what I've got here is the cum delta with a 20-period moving average on it. So again, I'm back to, let's see here, you can see it. This is November 9th. So this is Tuesday the 9th. We looked at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so I thought we'd come back here to a different day. Now, the volume profile here is on the left, which if this were the current day would be on the right here, but because we're going back in time, that's the way it at the end of the day, it'll put it on the left. Well, you can see coming out of the chute here at the open here, it's a straight rip down, right? Very clearly, you see it here in the volume waves, and then the cumulative delta. See, the cumulative delta on a candle by candle basis is a very good proxy for the actual delta. You'll see they will move, and you'll see the same thing. It'll move in conjunction with the buy sell volume here. So the same thing is happening here. You see the market is drifting, and you see it's a mirror image almost, right? Almost a mirror image in the cum delta here as we push down here. Now we get a little. You get a little green bar here as we pause here. But essentially what you'll see here is that with the exception of this little pause here, where we have a little high volume node here. So as before we just unloaded, we paused here for a second. You see that reflected right here. So we pause for a second. Remember, there's no time factor here. It's just how far has the market moved. And you see that as the cum delta stalls here, but look at the wave volume here. Now at that moment in time you don't have all of this, but as this, does that look like something you'd want to buy? Perhaps not. So as we continue, now we come out of that little consolidation. Look at the first bar, right? So if I open this up, see it a little bit better, you'll see the inside of the bar is colored red and the outline is bright red. So I know I've got sellers being the aggressors here. Now they don't get too far before they stall here, and then yet again. So it's a little push, a little more consolidation. Are we going to keep going? And then all red outline. So it's a big push down. So it's sell, base, question mark. Now we keep going. So as we come down here, and you'll see that reflected in the cum delta here on that bar by bar basis. So we get our total pivot down here, and then at this moment here, it looks like, okay, well I've still got very red outline, so I know it's still very delta negative here, but I'm starting to get some green candles here, despite the fact I've got red outline. So I've got mixed signals here, not ideal for trading. But I get up here, now what have I got? I've got a no interest short, right? Buyers are not stepping up here to take it back towards the highs. So we roll over, no divergence because I'm not at a new pivot or a new high. Now I come down here, I get my first divergence signal, which in conjunction with a no interest long, because I've got a dramatic divergence here between that first wave here and then the second wave. They puts in a new low. Little push, no interest, barely any interest on the long side. So here, on a micro level, and just back to our first video, right? That's all the market ever does, right? Swing. Now here's a different shape. It swings. It's deeper. Right? Get a new high. So here we get a no interest short. Come down here. Now as we hit, now at this moment in time, that's 10:04. While this ends up being the IB low, you don't know that's the IB low right there because it's not IB till 10:30. But it ends up being our IB low. But what do I get here? I get a volume divergence signal here. You see reflected here, and then I've got red bars. So is that enough to take a long there? Well, that's the individual trader's decision as to whether that wouldn't be good enough for me. I want to see look at the difference between this move here where I've got all of these red bars here, so this is mixed signals, and then this move here. Well, let's try to emphasize it here as we do this. Look at the outline of those candles. So what I get from this pivot here is I get a swing. Now it's a lower high than this, but as I come down I get a higher low. Now in this context here, now I get a higher high. But this being essentially, you can just look at it and say, okay, well, what happened here? We come right back into the prior resistance. There's that classic dilemma again. Back to the first video: is this going to be rejected? Are sellers going to defend their positions here and head back down towards new lows? You've got a lot of aggression coming into this, so there would need to be something more here for me, and I have no divergence here, obviously, since I don't get anything relative to where it would be something to diverge from. And then additionally here, I've got higher volume in this wave here than I have in this wave here, so there's no signs necessarily here that this would be a sell, other than it might be in the context of maybe a measured move from a prior pivot, or the fact that we're at a high volume node, we're just pushing outside of the value area of the day. So is that a sell? Well, again, remember, it's not going to confirm as the pivot of the zigzag until you get to about here. Bars are still green. Are you selling that? Perhaps not, right? So mixed signals. Not every pivot is going to give you a perfect entry, so you wouldn't want to be expecting that. So as we swing down here, again, you can just thematically, the market is talking to you here. So if sellers were going to take advantage, right, because we had quite the rip down off of the open, if sellers were going to keep that going, you would anticipate that they'd be able to get to new lows, but they can't do it. So now we get the green here. Down, so we get a no interest short here because I've got buyers not stepping up to take the market higher, back down. It's just, this is very typical of the market, right? Particularly earlier in the day. This is just decision making because we've got a pivot here and a pivot here. These two are inside of both. So is this a decision matrix that you would want to pursue? So coming off of this, I got red outlines here. These mixed signals, very mixed signals. Now I get up here, now it looks a little bit different. Now I've had all this, essentially this is all chop. So if you, let's see if we put it, do it this way. As we, is that going to let me do it? Let's take the bottom half of the IB, right? So essentially this is what we're doing. We're chopping. That's the halfway zone of the initial bounce. We're just chopping back and forth. But all of the momentum here is pushing lower here. So you would anticipate that potentially the market is really set up for a sell-off. So what's different at this pivot? Well, I'm right into a 50. So that's from the swing high to the swing low. I've come back exactly to 50. Now, if you frame it this way, you see here, well, this looks like perhaps a little fake break here. This is why, as I back to the first video, terrible emphasis, terrible place to enter the market long. Well, no sooner do we pop that 50 here then we bump this 50 because it's 50% from the swing high to swing low. No sooner do we pop that, we get a couple of bars away, we can see it reflected below. We can see that we've got volume divergence. So buyers do not step in here to take it up higher to try and take it towards the IB high or some of the further up any of the resistance levels that are up there, and of course the market just rolls over here. So let me get that off of the chart here. Oh, come on. All right, so with this now coming off of the 50, not only do I have volume divergence reflected below, I've got the cum delta is below the moving average, moving lower. I've got red candles. Well, if you weren't sure, right, and this is why this is often a good way to approach this, if you weren't sure, you missed it, or for whatever reason, now look at the next thing that happens, right? So I'm retracing right back into another golden zone, right? So if you missed the first one, this is the safer play, because if bulls were going to take it higher here, that would be reflected. You would see that reflected in the cum delta, you'd see it reflected in the volume, you'd see it reflected in the bars themselves, right? Are we coloring? Is the outline highlighted here? But nope, we roll over here. So here's the first target, second target. So this algo gets paid, and we come down here. Now, if sellers were going to really rip this lower, you'd anticipate that there's a hard break here of the IB, and then we're dragging it lower. But what do we get? We get a little divergence here. So here's the orange line. It's a little hard to see here, which is why the backup here of the above and below is worthwhile. So here you see a little bit better as I open it up. So here's the divergence between this pivot and this pivot. So look how much farther we've moved in price, but the volume doesn't support the fact that it's likely to go lower. So I've got divergence here. I don't get a no interest signal here because I've got comparable sell volume here. Now up I go. I've got green, but I get a no interest long. Again, if bulls were going to take over here, you'd anticipate that this would keep going and they'd step in. That happened. So I got a no interest short. Right, down we go. no interest long. So essentially this is, and this is very typical, the market will just reach these zones of consolidation where essentially it's just chopping, right? So we're not advancing the trend, but we're not retracing far enough to where you would call this a new trend. And ultimately out of that consolidation, as we start heading lower, bright red bars, right? Again, now this ends up being the first, is it? Yeah, that's the first test of our IB low right here. See, it snaps right back inside. This is a trade that we watch for every day. First test, right? Only the first test. So we pop back in. Now, you know, are you taking this given the red candles? Well, so here where's where that cum delta can be helpful. No sooner do we put in this low here, then we start to see the delta start to accelerate. We see the volume start to accelerate. So if you were hesitant here because of the red color of the candles, I think the smarter way to trade this would have been wait for a green candle, which what happens? We get a little retrace here at the IB low. You can see down below here, buyers are still in control, and then we pop it up there. So, you know, that's more than you think. So let's assume you didn't get tick high to tick low. Well, there's 23 ticks just right there. Yeah, not a bad trade for a 1 or a 2 lot. And even still, if you were unsure there, right, as we come up here, well, all of a sudden I've got red momentum. Well, what do I do here? I go swing low, swing high, right into a golden zone where I get a no interest long, right? No interest long. Sellers are not driving it lower here. I'm at a technical pivot. Well, I don't get too far before I've got, so again, I'm back in the same situation. This is just one of those days where we're just going to chop. Right? It happens a lot. This can be what really troubles many traders is you start anticipating bigger moves here. We're just chopping around, so it's stopped out here, stopped out on the long, stopped out on the short, and before you know it, you're down $500-600 here. And this took what from, well, not to mention here we're right in the lunch hour. It's historically still remains a time where you see the volume die down, certainly relative to the first half of the day or the first quarter of the day and the last quarter of the day. So we're right here in the noon hour chopping. Not terribly surprising here. No big moves here to challenge any of the prior support. So, you know, again, just something like this. You draw that over, you see how that holds the market for the day. So we're just chopping. What we are getting here, this is, you know, we don't get trend. Most days do not trend, right? So it's when we get the big moves like we had this week, where we had the huge down day and then they end the week with the huge up day. You know, those are days that you look forward to because you've got the opportunity to participate in those bigger trends. Here, you don't get those same opportunities here. It's just a chop day, but you do at each one of these pivots here. There is an opportunity here to participate. So on these kind of days, I want there to be confluence at these pivots. Right, so more than just, oh, hey, I've got a little volume divergence. If I've got volume divergence, it needs to be at an important level. So here being the first test of the IB, that would be significant to me. I think that covers it here, but I was looking for some examples here where the cum delta really stands out as we, I guess if I kind of open this up, you'll see this is a very good proxy for delta. As this move is pushing higher here, well, you know via the green outlines here that buyers are in control, and you'll find that that'll be very consistent with what you'll see here. It won't be an exact match, right, because it's a derivative, but you'll get very close to it. So